landing.
So the first step in any kind of project like this is to try and figure out the science behind what you're working on and then come up with some sort of tests that you can do to try out some different parameters and see what effect they have on your experiment. So let's start at the beginning. What is the science of rockets and how does a rocket even fly? Well, it all comes down to a law of physics that was discovered by a very famous scientist called Isaac Newton. Now, he was a kind of a mega nerd, okay? And he came up with all sorts of ideas about gravity and forces in particular. And his third law of motion, it says that every action has an equal but opposite reaction. And what does that mean? That means if I push something with a force, that thing pushes back on me. And it's kind of hard for us to see this in day-to-day life, but if you try an experiment like this, you'll get an idea. Sit on a chair at home that has wheels, something like an office chair, and push a heavy object off that. And you'll feel you're pushed back in the opposite direction. Just try not to break any windows. So how does this actually work with rockets? Well, rockets work by pushing something super fast out the back of the rocket, usually some sort of a flaming gas. And if the rocket is pushing that flaming gas really hard out the back, well then the flaming gas has to be pushing the rocket really hard in the opposite direction. That's Newton's third law. Now this pushing force that pushes the rocket up, we call it thrust. And if we want to maximize thrust, we need to push something really heavy out the back and we need to push it really fast. We also have another force that acts against thrust and we call that drag. Now the way to think about drag is, have you ever tried running in a swimming pool? If you've tried running in a swimming pool, it's really difficult. We can feel this force when we're trying to go through the water, and that is drag. It's really amplified in water. The same force exists in air, but you don't notice it until you go really fast. So if we want an effective rocket, we need to maximize thrust and we need to minimize drag. But there's even more things to think about. It's almost as if rocket science is complicated, huh? Well, if we want to maximize thrust, by filling our rocket up with loads of good heavy fuel, well, the rocket's going to get too heavy and it won't be able to take off. So we need to get the balance just right so we have enough fuel to give us lots of thrust, but we're still not too heavy. We also need to have a nice thin design that can cut through the air really nicely. So a nice tall thin rocket is what we're aiming for. Now instead of burning gas, our rocket is going to use pressurized air and water. There's less chance of us blowing ourselves up or setting something on fire this way. And water is heavy, so it's a nice heavy fuel that we can use to get thrust, but we don't want to have too much of it, remember? We need to get just the right balance, somewhere in the middle, not too hot, not too cold, just like Goldilocks, somewhere in the middle should be just right. Now the last thing we want to think about is how quickly the fuel gets used up. If we push the fuel out too fast at the start, well, we're going to move too fast and we're going to have too much drag, which means we're going to drop down out of the sky quicker than we wanted to. If we can release that fuel just a little bit more slowly, we'll get less drag, we'll move in a nice smoother trajectory, and we'll get higher for longer. Bearing all that in mind, we got to work on a new improved design. We're going to see how high we can get just using water and air. Let's go, give it a shot. We're here now to launch our new improved rockets. Our Model 1 is this one here. So we went with the stereotypical triangular fin design. We have 3 of them and they're really carefully placed around so that they're all at the same distance around. We also put some weight in the nose cone. We scrunched up an old tea towel and put it on there. So this should give us a better trajectory when there's weight in the nose cone. So we're going to fill this about a third full of water. Okay, we're going to try that. We're going to pop in our altimeter and we're going to see how high we get with this particular model. Okay, so we're going to connect up our bottle. We're going to slide it carefully over the rubber seal. Nice and carefully. There we go. She's over the rubber seal. Okay, so if you remember from the last video, this sits down nicely here. We click up this pipe into place and it's going to hold our bottle in place. So it can't go anywhere until I pull this string. Okay, we're ready for launch 1. I'm going to drop in the altimeter. It's going to tell us the height we get to. So in you go, little dude, into the nicely cushioned nose cone there. Okay, so let's fill it up with pressure. We'll see what pressure we get to this time, and we'll We'll launch. Okay, here we go. Cross your fingers and your toes, everybody. So, okay, we're building up the pressure. 20 psi. 40 psi. And we're going to launch at 60 psi. Here we go. Whoa! Whoa! Oh! Boom! Ha! Woohoo! Okay, so we got to 141 feet this time. That's about 43 meters, so that's double what we got the last time. We only got to 20 meters with our last bottle rocket. So all we did was we changed our design. We put on these different fins, we put a little bit more weight in the nose cone, and we got to so much higher. So what I'm going to do is we're going to try a few other different designs, and we're going to see how high we can get with them. Okay, now we're trying the same design, but we're going with more water. We're having 2/3 full with water, and we're going to fill it to the same pressure, and we're going to see how we get on. So here we go. Oy. Okay, we only got to about 12 meters that time, okay, 12 meters, and we thought that was going to happen because there was so much water, which was more fuel, but it was too heavy. So we know that it was better to go with less fuel. So now we're going to try an even different design. So this is the design we want to test now, okay? This is a lot bigger. This is more like what we're talking about, tall and thin with lots of fuel and lots of space. So this is 3 bottles all connected to each other. We've drilled through and sealed them all, connected with rubber and everything so that they're completely air and watertight. So we're going to fill this whole contraption here 1/3 with water, and then the rest will pump with air. So let's have a look and see how that turns out when we get it on here. Okay, so we're about 1/3 full with water. We have this huge long guide rail here to try and keep it going straight because it's so tall. And we're going to fill it up to the same pressure as before. The altimeter's in, it's ready to go, and we'll see how high we get. So let's give it a shot.
We got a roll program. Plus 30 seconds.
We got 408 feet. That's over 120 meters. We bet even the solid fuel rocket in the last episode. 120 meters with just air and compressed air and water. And you know what the crazy thing about it is? Every single bit of force that went into that is force that I pushed into the pump. So in reality, a human being threw this thing 120 meters. We just stored all the energy up and released it in one go. Guys, I hope that you'll tune in to next episode, because in the next episode we're going to show you in detail how to actually build these rockets yourself, because we couldn't squeeze it into this episode. So we hope you enjoyed that, guys. We hope you enjoyed seeing this rocket soar to new heights, and we hope you'll tune in for the next episode to see how to build it yourself. Thanks so much, guys. Here we go. Whoa.